This program is made possible through the financial support of Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the 2022 State of Higher Education Address. My name's Mike Alley, and it's my pleasure to serve as the chair of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. First, I'd just like to say thank to Governor Holcomb for being here today. It's a very pleasure to have you with us. We certainly value your leadership, your steadfast commitment to education and training beyond high school, and especially to ensure that Indiana continues to have the talented workforce that we need going forward today and tomorrow. I'd also like to thank the staff of the Indiana State House who are hosting us here today and making such a gracious presentation for us. Later, we'll be hosted also by Ivy Tech Community College for a reception, Ivy Tech Community College of Muncie, and we look forward to joining us for refreshments later. Well, it's been 2 years since we last had our State of Higher Education, and boy, has a lot of things changed in the last 2 years. We've seen institutions that have really adjusted to how they deliver education, and we've seen Hoosier students continue to persevere so that Indiana's college education completion rates for the class of 2020 have stayed on track. We know that more than ever, higher education remains the most powerful force to improve lives in Indiana. Well, for the past 13 years, the Commission and Indiana's higher education institutions and students have benefited from the dedicated leadership of our Teresa Lovers. She has been terrific, and we're pleased to have her to address us today with the challenges and opportunities. Now, I have a great deal of pleasure introducing Teresa. She's done a wonderful job in leading the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. She's been leading the commission since 2009 and is currently the nation's longest-serving state higher education executive officer. In addition to her role as commissioner of the IHCE, she also serves as the chair of the governor's workforce cabinet. Well, prior to joining the commission, she had a great deal of experience already. She was the state senator for 17 years and served as chair of the State Senate Education and Career Development Committee. Well, as Teresa concludes her service to the state in this role this spring, it's important to note that she's left an incredible legacy on Indiana's post-secondary higher education landscape that will continue to benefit Hoosiers for generations to come. Her strategic vision, innovative leadership have positioned Indiana among the best in the country for learners to achieve their full potential through high-quality, affordable education here in Indiana. Teresa leaves huge shoes to fill, and her background, experience, and passion are clearly irreplaceable. But we're going to have to do so, and we will. But at this time, it's truly my pleasure to introduce one of the greatest leaders we've had, Commissioner for Higher Education, Texas Lovers. Thank you. Teresa Lovers.
Thank you so much.
Let me get that out of your head.
Thank you, Mike, for your very kind introduction. I appreciate that, but I also appreciate your very thoughtful leadership to the Commission and our state. Your contributions as an employer, a civic leader, and a public servant make you uniquely qualified to bring us together on education and workforce issues for the benefit of all Hoosiers. It's been my pleasure and privilege to serve alongside you and to benefit from your experience and counsel. The Commission has been led by visionary commissioner leaders since the creation in state statute in 1971. We're joined today by members of the Commission. As they stand, please join me in thanking them for their valuable service. Thank you. As I conclude my tenure as Higher Education Commissioner, I do so with great respect and admiration for those who have joined me in this journey. I've been inspired, challenged, encouraged by dedicated commission leaders, a talented staff, and many other partners who actually share this vision to increase opportunity and improve quality of life through higher education. It's hard to make a decision to leave a career when it's more a mission than a job. And that decision has come to me, and I think it's the right time, but it's a hard one to make. So let me begin by simply saying thanks to all of those who have supported me and who are engaged in this life-changing work. 2013 marks the first State of Higher Education Address. 2013 marked the first State of Higher Education Address. And in each year since then, there's been a clear focus on improving student success, adapting to changing demographics and higher education expectations, and increasing higher education's value to students and to the state of Indiana as well. And as we consider the state of higher education in 2022, we will build on these themes with a focus on the imperative to transform higher education to meet the diverse needs of learners and a changing economy. In considering what I wanted to share in this year's address, I was struck by the challenge of being both honest about the new demands facing higher education and hopeful about our resolve and ability to meet them. For those who follow trends and opinion leaders, you know that the future of higher education is uncertain. Financial sustainability and enrollment declines. Nationwide, more than 1 million fewer students are enrolled in higher education now than before the pandemic, and 3 million less over the last decade. An influx of new providers and the demands of a more consumer-driven system of higher education add to higher education's uncertain future. On the other hand, exciting changes are underway to serve learners in more affordable, accessible, and relevant ways. I just finished reading the book, The Great Upheaval, by Arthur Levine and Scott Van Pelt, about higher education's past, present, and uncertain future. The authors opine two positions about higher education change: adaptation and disruption. And any thoughtful analysis would conclude that both are underway. For me, the biggest takeaway among the many plausible ones offered is that the changes that are required today to meet the workforce needs are more revolutionary than those required in the Industrial Revolution or perhaps any time before. We would expect that higher education would lead the way and thrive in this knowledge-based economy. But the evidence of that is mixed at best. There will be winners and losers. It's not inevitable which provider fits into which category, but there are some fairly clear signs of those which will survive or fail. For today, let's consider these issues through the Indiana lens, beginning with the truth that Indiana is home to some of the best higher education institutions in the nation. People come to Indiana to attend our colleges and universities, both public and private. We're home to world-class research institutions, student-friendly four-year institutions and campuses, and the nation's largest singularly accredited community college. Is this enough to predict that our 7 public systems and 29 private institutions will thrive or survive? I don't think so. The ones that do will resist the temptation for incremental change, but rather embrace the reality that students, young or older, will expect a dramatically different system of learning and ways of showing their competence. First, higher education needs to be affordable, and institutions must find ways to bend the cost curve. That's happening on many campuses, and when tuition is stabilized, enrollments are more likely to increase. As new providers enter the higher education space, it should be expected that competition would drive down costs. And that's a good thing at a time when more Hoosiers will need education beyond high school. We should acknowledge with appreciation the commitment of state lawmakers to address college costs through sustained and generous financial aid benefits, nearly $400 million annually. In addition, legislators have embraced a funding formula that distributes state dollars based on completion outcomes, not enrollments. After all, the most expensive proposition for a student is debt, especially debt that is not associated with the completion of a degree or a credential. The cost of higher education, whether it's perception or reality, is causing many people to question whether college is worth it. There are other reasons too, but affordability tops the list. And at the Commission, we have engaged with Vox Global to do a deep dive into the perceptions of higher education. We need a better understanding of why college-going rates are declining in Indiana. 5 years ago, 65% of high school students were choosing a higher education pathway. Today, that number has dropped to 59%. And for low-income, Black and Hispanic students, the number is significantly lower. Gender matters too. 65% of young women are still pursuing higher education after high school, but that number has dropped to 51% for male high school students. It's worth noting when we interviewed and surveyed Hoosiers around the state from different backgrounds with different educational levels, hearing from students from those who did believe in higher education and choosing that path and those who did not. But even for those who choose higher education, there's skepticism about its affordability and relevance. To ensure that post-secondary programs are relevant to workforce needs and student aspirations, we have advocated for career-relevant experiences for all degree programs, such as an internship, apprenticeship, or work-based learning opportunity. The college value conversation is at a tipping point. And for the sake of ensuring personal prosperity and meeting workforce needs, we need to address that skepticism. I raised this issue in my State of Higher Education address in 2018, and the skepticism has only increased since that time. Again, especially as men and minorities are disengaging from higher education at higher levels. When I was coming of age, this didn't matter as much. Good job opportunities had existed for those with a high school or even an 8th grade education. I entered college at a time when opportunities and jobs were changing, and many people were left behind. Indiana's per capita income, which had exceeded the national average, continued its downward trend. Play that reality out to today, when more jobs, and nearly all new jobs, require education and training beyond high school. If we don't get that message across, we risk driving income disparity and social stratification even more. In our interviews, we learned that a majority of Hoosiers, around 80%, feel favorable toward higher education. But when we got underneath that number, we learned that many think it's not the right path for them. Others said it just wasn't necessary. While that may be true for some who attain credentials of value in other ways, the truth is that it is a risky proposition to walk away from the promise of education beyond high school. In addition to affordability and relevance, we heard that higher education must be more accessible and flexible for those who are balancing jobs, families, and other responsibilities. If COVID taught us anything, it was that institutions must and can be nimble in how they deliver education, and that for many Hoosiers, the option to learn without going to a classroom was and is critical. Even as we provide these opportunities, we also recognize that the residential in-class or hybrid learning experience remains the best option for many. Bottom line, we must make higher education work for people who need different pathways to attain the benefits of higher education. So what needs to change and what needs to endure? Quality must be preserved, regardless of the setting, length of the program, the age or life circumstances of the learner, or the credential that is earned. The employers who hire our graduates deserve nothing less than the assurance that the degree or credential indicates the knowledge and skill needed for the job. On-the-job training and additional education may be necessary as requirements change, but the credential should be a valid measure of competency. How we measure competency is changing too. The credit hour is increasingly called into question as the measure of learning, and truthfully, it was never intended to be that. It is a way of measuring how much credit a student receives based on the hours spent in that course and not the knowledge gained. Measuring outcomes and mastery of competencies is still a complex and sometimes confusing landscape, but we should anticipate a growing focus on new ways to teach, assess, and track competencies. Higher education must also adapt to the changing landscape that values learning in multiple settings, including knowledge gained outside the classroom. In the recent legislative session, the Commission was called upon to develop a clearinghouse for credit for prior learning. How are we, or how should we measure what Hoosiers have learned, both in and outside the classroom, and give value to that experience or knowledge? This is especially important for adults who enter or return to higher education. I've highlighted only a few of the challenges confronting higher education. I also want to share some examples of how Indiana is a leader in the nation in this time of revolutionary change. Understanding that Hoosiers are concerned about affordability, the Commission has partnered with institutions to limit tuition and reduce borrowing and debt. Indiana ranks first in the Midwest and fifth in the nation in providing need-based financial aid. And we have seen tuition held flat, or it's our lowest of any other time in the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, we've seen those tuitions held flat or the lowest. Our soon-to-be-released College Cost and Financial Aid Report underscores the value of financial aid investments, with recipients earning at least 2.5 times what was invested in them only 3 years after graduation. Leading the nation and working with our K-12 partners to advocate for early college credit, nearly 2/3 of Hoosier students now graduate from high school better prepared for college-level work. Additionally, a growing number of high school graduates have earned an Indiana College Core Certificate, which is a block of 30 credit hours of general education coursework which can be transferred seamlessly to all public institutions and some private schools as well. High school students can earn these credits for $750 or less, giving them a head start toward earning a 2- or 4-year degree and saving thousands of dollars. Our 21st Century Scholars Program is a national model, and scholars are on target to close achievement gaps for low-income, minority, and first-generation students, and already exceed the college-going rate across all populations by almost 30 percentage points. Daly Miller is a junior at IUPUI and a 21st Century Scholar from Boonville. She works on campus and is majoring in sustainable management and policy. Daly says without the scholarship, she likely wouldn't have gone to college. Here's what else she's had to say about her experience with the Scholars Program. Now, I'm so glad that I am in school because I've realized my passions and made so many great connections within the field I want to work in, which is sustainable tourism. I don't know where I'd be right now without the experiences I've been given through this program. Leroy Medrano is a 21st Century Scholar alumni who was recently interviewed by several local television stations. When Leroy was growing up, he never pictured himself going to college. The cost of higher education was a major barrier, and he knew his mother would never be able to afford to send him to a university. In middle school, Leroy learned of the 21st Century Scholars Program, and at first, he admits he wasn't even considering pursuing higher ed. That changed when one of his teachers told his mother about the Scholars Program and encouraged Leroy to go to college. Just that impact alone, he said, that little conversation that the teacher had with my mother really got me thinking, oh, maybe I can do it. Leroy's story is not only a testament of the impact of the 21st Century Scholars Program, but it also illustrates the importance of having the best and right messengers. Without his teacher saying she could see him going to college, Leroy may never have enrolled in the 21st Century Scholars Program. He may not have gone on to Purdue University, where he's now wrapping up his first semester of graduate school. Different messengers, such as teachers, guidance counselors, faith-based organizations, and community leaders, resonate with different students and families, and they're critical to improving the college-going rate. While Leroy is unable to join us today, Daly is here. Daly, please stand as we acknowledge your good work and promising future. These are just two of the thousands of success stories we have through the 21st Century Scholars Program. over 45,000 since the program's creation. There are over 100,000 students currently enrolled between 7th grade and college. Our data show that they are succeeding, not only in the college-going rates that I cited earlier, but also in completion. 21st Century Scholars' on-time completion rate at 2- and 4-year colleges have nearly doubled. Even with the impressive college-going and success rates, only about half of income-eligible students are participating in our state's Promise program. This demands an all-hands effort to ensure more of our eligible students and families know about the benefits of enrolling and get the support they need to maintain eligibility through high school and college. Another area where our state leads is in our efforts to ensure quality online and distance education. Indiana was the first state to join the national organization NC-SARA to reduce the costs and ensure quality of distance education across state lines. More important now than ever. We were first, and now 48 other states have joined us. Recognizing that credential transparency is increasingly important, and with nearly 1 million credentials available, Indiana was the first state to engage with Credential Engine, a platform which is designed for learners to show their skills and knowledge and explore career options, while employers will be better able to understand which skills and competencies potential employees have mastered through their credentials. Through the Governor's Workforce Cabinet, Indiana is a national leader in aligning funding, programs, and policies of workforce preparation, from early childhood to returning adults. Over 57,000 Hoosiers have enrolled in a high-demand certificate, and nearly 32,000 Hoosiers have completed a certificate for free, leading to an almost $7,000 annual wage gain. Employers are also benefiting from opportunities to upskill their employees through the Next Level Jobs program. 3,000 employers have provided training for more than 30,000 Hoosiers who have received training and increased their wages by more than $4,000. Recently, Tony Carnevale of the Georgetown University Center on Education in the Workforce was quoted about the impact to our economy of not having enough students in the college pipeline or people trained for 21st century jobs. The direct loss to the economy is the workers themselves, Tony said. If they were trained and ready, they would get higher wage jobs and they would add more to the GDP, making us all richer and increasing taxes, reducing welfare costs, crime costs, and on and on. This brings us back to the value of higher education often being called into question. In spite of the many reasons why higher education has value, we also see evidence of distrust played out in culture and free speech divides on campuses. A commitment to free speech led the General Assembly and the Commission to address this issue by surveying students about their concerns and expressing their views. We are working with Gallup and the institutions to measure perceptions and ensure that multiple perspectives are welcome. Higher education is often labeled as not being adaptable, but I believe that is a lagging narrative. Over the past 2 years, due to the impact of COVID, we've seen institutions adjust how they deliver education and respond to changing needs. Schools had to switch to online learning, extend admissions deadlines, and reset their academic calendars, adjusted travel restrictions, and deal with expenses caused by technology costs, student refunds, and emergency relief funds. Another example of adaptability can be seen through institutions adjusting their curriculum and programs to meet the needs of the knowledge-based economy. There's no better illustration of this than the changing landscape in IT curricular offerings. Institutions have added in-demand programs such as cybersecurity while updating or removing others to keep up with the emerging needs of students and employers. We know higher education is capable of change. By prioritizing overall quality and focusing on affordability, access, and relevance, Indiana's higher education system will be poised to adapt to future uncertainties. We must show Hoosiers that education and training beyond high school provides more than a degree and certificate. Higher education can open doors to additional career options and economic mobility. As a first-generation college graduate, I know the transformative power of higher education. And as Commissioner of Higher Education, I know that higher education must also be transformed to meet the needs of today's learners and employers. As I conclude my role at the Commission, I'm convinced that higher education is positioned to play its pivotal role to reach our big goal that at least 60% of Hoosiers will have a quality credential beyond high school by 2025, ensuring economic mobility, a better prepared workforce, and a state that will thrive in a time of change and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Those words of wisdom were certainly on the mark, and I think illustrates the great strides and success that you have enjoyed and the leadership you've provided, but at the same time, very appropriately addressing what we need to focus on going forward. So thank you very much for that, for those comments. At this time, it truly is my pleasure to introduce Governor Eric Holcomb, who has a few words and a special presentation.
I don't make it a habit to invite myself onto someone else's program, but with your permission, I'll make an exception today because I cannot think of a better time or place to recognize this lady, someone who has led an incredible life in our nation's capital to our state capital, who every day has brought a thoughtful approach, who has been tenacious, fearless, creative, innovative, and done it with class every single day. And for whoever, I was almost going to say I pity the fool who has to follow you, but for whoever follows you, I hope you will take comfort in knowing, as I do, that they will carry on your legacy. This incredible body of work and accomplishment. It is inspirational, and it will attract a talent that will carry on exactly what you have put in place. You can't have a conversation with Teresa, and I look around at so many people here in different chapters of your life, without a couple things coming through. And one is, and you of course touched on it in your remarks, about connecting with those who aren't equipped early in life with as others of us have. Really connecting with them and giving them the same opportunity for upward mobility. The second thing that you cannot escape a conversation with Teresa is hearing about her grandchildren. And so, knowing of our great loss will be your grandchildren's great gain, indeed your whole family. And I could not be more honored to present you with our state's highest award, the Sagamore of the Wabash.
How are they going to take a picture of this? You're going to have to go down. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love you.
Thank you. Okay, all right, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure to serve. My heart is full.
This program is made possible through the financial support of Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.